Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. For some people who are lazy to go to sleep or to wake up early to listen to this podcast analysis of a short story that this is the continuity of, they might not catch up with the best podcast out there to give you, in a nutshell, the best gist of a pronunciation of English. So welcome everyone. Let's include everyone. Let's be a little bit inclusive to everyone and not exclusive to some people. Today, we do read the story that we did not finish in our last time we had that podcast because we keep jumping back and forth. To keep jumping back and forth is to keep doing the same thing and you do something else and then you return back to do it again. So this is pretty much what we're doing. We are taking short snippets of the story, so we are not taking it in one go. If you don't take something in one go, like drinking a whole bottle of water. Interesting. That's a good sample of American pronunciation to some people, fanatics of accent. We'll come back to that later. But today or tonight, we're doing a short paragraph of reading, but it's actually not about reading. It's about enjoying good quality of reading for the benefit of pronunciation and learning vocabulary. This is part of a story that we've been reading that I don't know the title of. I just forgot the title. And I kind of feel lazy to go back to the square number one, to the beginning of this essay or this short essay to read it. But it's in a nutshell, very interesting story that helps us develop good pronunciation practices. You know, when it comes to learning vocabulary, that you just need to foster good amount of pronunciation. You need to condition your ears to good quality of pronunciation to help you improve your English and to overcome the obstacle, the ordeal, the impediment, the, what do we call it? The catastrophe that we see nowadays that people do not and cannot and are not able to speak good quality English. English has become a common standard spoken language by more than 2 billion people around the world. So not being able to speak it, and not only do you have to be ready for this kind of language, but to be aware that in the next few decades, this language might become the standard language of communication of all the countries around the world. It is the standard first and second language spoken by more than 120 countries around the world. But this might go farther than that. Let's get started. So when the sound of metal falling. Now, look here. When we say when the sound of metal falling or metal falling. And I'm not stressing the G here. So if you notice here, I'm not saying the G. I'm just de-stressing it. And that's for a good reason. It's pausing me from smoothing to the next, from transitioning to the next word, whether that's a content word or a function word. It does not smooth out the way. if I say the sound of G, like falling. And probably that might take the ears of the listeners to confuse and mistake it for another word that I'm saying, or I'm just merging two words. So this shall be taken in consideration. I don't want to show you an ardent failure of pronunciation as much as I'm trying to manifest a better way of fostering better pronunciation for the amount of time that you spend. So when the sound of metal falling on the ground ended, when the sound of metal falling on the ground ended, she had a small pile of coins. She had a small pile of coins. Now, when we talk about had, this is not the regular had that functions as an auxiliary verb. No, this is the main verb. This is the major verb. So she had a small pile. And pile هو كتس أو كوم. Pile of coins. Coins هي العملات النقدية. Coins, 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 coins. She literally counted them. Now look how we say this word, literally. I can decisively say that every speaker of English says this word differently, and they say it according to certain norms, conditions, discretions that each one of us has in this regard. So what I'm saying a variety of this word. And this does not necessarily mean that this is the definitive pronunciation of. So I'm saying literally. We can say literally, as you can see here in the transcription, which is the British version of, and we can say literally. So literally, 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 or literally. Now, you might seem more familiar with the latter over the former, but I can assure you that both of them are acceptable on the same level of acceptability. So I'm not tilting the scale to the American accent over the British accent, because Canadians, I mean, do we have people from Canada? They say it that way, literally. Or we can say literally. I mean, tomato, tomato. The way you say it does not geographically corner you to being Americanized or Britishanized. Is this? I'm not sure if this is a word, but I'm trying to say that you don't have to pretend that you're acting as an American or British speaker. You can say it the way you like, the way your vocal cords and your articulation system is conditioned, whether you're speaking Arabic, French, Farsi, or any kind of English or other kind of international common languages. You can say the way you want. I mean, nobody is going to judge you based on the way you say literally or literally. Because this word is so common that everybody is saying it. And whether you beautify it with this way or that way, as long as I understand what you mean, as long as I know that what you mean is the literally, that's enough. So there is no hard feeling. I mean, except for those people whom I consider grammar Nazis or pronunciation Nazis, who just judge you based on every single word that you enunciate. This is actually nonsensical to some extent. I mean, why would you judge people based on the way they say the thing over what they mean with these kind of things? Language is not restricted to the fact that you have to say it this way or that way. My professor used to say, there are ways. There's no one way. There are ways. So I keep saying that again and again, that please don't dwell on the fact that accent is important. It's not assessed in the majority of standardized tests in the world. Internationally speaking, the accent is not as important as the variety of vocabulary, the level of grammaticality that you have, or the coherence of your speech and the range of meaningfulness that you can convey to people. Eventually, a language that you speak is a means of communication of your ideas to the brain of your audience, to the brain of your listeners. So don't judge the person by the kind of accent that they possess or have, or they have not. This is nonsensical. So over and over through the rest of the night. But remember, this word, at least if you want to perfect the British or American, you have to say it like 500 times. Okay? So over the span of a whole week, you can dedicate some time and do it in intermittent manner. So you say it and you stop, you do something else. You go back and say it and you stop and you do something else. And you come back and you say it and you do something else. This is the way you get to the professional level. We are not after being perfectionists, but we are after being professional. And one way to be professional is to quit lecturing and start learning to practice. Learning to practice, being a practitioner, is a very important element of being a good speaker of English. Otherwise, the fact that you're just listening without manifesting in conversation with people, with engagement, with collaborative work as a team is of no value. So you have to pull yourself together and start activating your speech. Now, the way you do that is by pulling up a cell phone recorder, camera, not camera, camera. So the way we say it is camera. Look, the way we say it is camera. So the pronunciation is camera, camera. Now, let me just delete it here. So through the rest of the night, she literally counted them over and over through the rest of the night. Moving on here. So when morning came, morning. When morning came, look, when morning. So there's this kind of fusion. There's this kind of bridge that we draw between the last sound and the first sound of the new word. When morning came, the hole in the wall had disappeared. Now, the major verb, the capital word in this sentence is disappeared. So it carries the gravity of your pronunciations. The hole in the wall had disappeared. Perhaps she had lost her mind as well. Perhaps she had lost her mind as well as her fruit. Look, she had lost. And when we talk about had lost, we talk about two events that happened in the past. And one of the shortcomings of English, which is not a shortcoming as much as it's an ease of learning for foreigners. So it's one of the pieces where foreigners are lucky to learn English, is the fact that English is not sophisticated when it comes to grammar and tenses and aspects. So in this aspect in particular, we talk about past perfect. In past perfect, we talk about two events that both took place in the past. But in order to say that one of them preceded the other and the other came after the first event, we have to use this kind of structure, which happened to be called, for some reason, past perfect. So she had lost her mind as well as her fruit. Because look at the time that they're talking about past here. So this is past. So this event was preceded by another event that happened earlier. So the event that happened earlier should be reported by the speaker or the writer. And one way they report it is by using a structure that is identical to this one, which is had lost. So instead of saying she lost her mind as well, because that's going to be synchronous to the event of the coming of the morning. So when the coming of the morning happened or occurred, there was a parallel collateral event that was on the same equivalence that both happened at the same time. And this is not the case here. What we are talking about specifically here is the fact that there was an event that preceded another event. And one way we structurally say it is by using the past perfect. So the past perfect's purpose is to simply say, this event happened first before this event, before that I tell you that. So there are three, obviously there are three events. The event of me actualizing what happened by reporting it, and the action of reporting is instantaneous. And then I'm reporting two events. One of them came before the other one. So the first one used to be called past perfect. So her mind, as well as her fruit, her cart, and her mother stole. Her mother stole. Look here, this is another bridge. I call it bridge. This is not the technical word of it to describe this kind of grammatical structure or rhetorical structure. But let's call it, for the sake of illustration and simplicity, bridge. And the bridge is when connecting the last sound of the word with the first sound of the new word coming after, for sake of brevity and fluidity and continuity of pronunciation. So far we have covered this part, and to keep the podcast shorter than half an hour, because I want you to listen to it. And for sake of posting it on multiple platforms that allow half an hour of posting and does not allow more than half an hour, I'll keep the video up to this point, and then in the next podcast we'll finish the story. But as I said before, the idea is not about the analysis of the story. The analysis of the story is far more important and has more priority and more privilege of a discussion of the pronunciation of the grammatical structures here than just reading and traveling over the sentences without making sense of the analysis of the depth of every one of these sentences and how they structurally lead us to understand the beauty and the miracle that is called English, or that is called universally language. Have a wonderful day or evening. مدرب لغة وليد خالد.